We are back live, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to find out who you're really dealing with, what the environmental movement is, especially all you useful idiots that really think you're helping the earth, you need to see my film Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. You can get this film free right now for a limited time, and you get it with Fall of the Republic, a lot of other specials that we're running just up until Christmas. Let's say you know all about this stuff. Your neighbors, your friends, your family don't. This is a tax we have to pay voluntarily to educate our friends and family before they get turned into drone zombies of the New World Order. So I suggest everybody support alternative media, buy the books, buy the videos, give them to people for Christmas. A lot of big specials at Infowars.com, and get the amazing book, Red Hot Lies, How Global Warming Alarmists Use Threats, Fraud, and Deception to Keep You Misinformed, by Christopher Horner, available at better bookstores everywhere, put out by Regnery Press, also available at Amazon.com. Okay, Christopher, continuing. One segment left with you. I definitely want to have you back up soon. Very impressive discussions. You also talk about the harassment you've gone through with Greenpeace and other eugenicists. But before we go there, let's go over their lies, their scientific fraud, the premeditated fact. These aren't tree-hugging idiots who are just making mistakes. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, look, this climate gate, while you can tell by the effort being expended to diminish its importance. This is more than 1,000 emails, but it's not just the emails. It's computer code, annotations to the code, and documents. The pointy heads are still going through to figure out what's in there. They were not hacked or stolen, as far as we can tell. They were leaked by an apparent whistleblower. They were not personal emails. All of these things the media are telling you to distract you aren't true, because this is devastating. What it does is it affirms in the principal's own words what I wrote in this stupid science tricks chapter of Red Hot Lies. I named these guys by name, and I described what they were doing. There are more, and there are more people involved here. It's a fairly broad movement, but this is at the upper echelon of the highest compensated levels of climate science, on which we spend billions every year, by the way, so you know it's settled science, right? And they're admitting what they've been doing. They've been grafting not just apples and oranges together, but in showing, in reconstructing temperatures and waving it around and publishing it in the refereed literature, they're grafting apples and stethoscopes. They're taking tree rings, and they're saying this is a proxy for climate. It's a pretty good proxy for precipitation, but they're using it as a thermometer. Okay, and then they put on thermometer measurements because the tree rings show a cooling. Well, the thermometer measurements, which, as I show in Red Hot Lies, are increasingly taken over barbecue grills in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport runway, Tucson parking lot when it used to be out in the field. I mean, they're playing games with the data as well out of NASA, which is why we've got a notice of intent to sue them, by the way. And they're grafting A onto B in order to present the picture that they admit in their emails they need to be true, they want to be true, has to be true. Some of them say, we know it's true even though we can't see it, and these are the lead. This was an IPCC UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change lead author. This guy named Kevin Trenberth said in two of the emails, it's a travesty that he can't find the global warming that he knows is there, because his heart tells him so, his computer models tell him so, but our lying eyes don't tell him so, and that's a travesty. He says we need to go out and get better measurements. We have caught them, for example, this summer. Our National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which presently is in Copenhagen right now, with a big reception room, with moving visuals, I read, about melting glaciers and so on. You're paying for this. This summer, in order to make its claims of temperatures going up, just slowly backed out of their calculations. They dropped the satellite measurements of the ocean temperatures. Why? Well, the oceans are cooling. The computer models all say the oceans are warming. The oceans cover 2/3 of the Earth's surface. If you include ocean cooling, they've got a problem. So what did they do? They said, we know it's warming, so there must be a bias that the satellite temperatures must be wrong. There's something wrong with our observations. Who are you going to believe, my computer model or your lying eyes? And so on and so on and so on. And I detail these tricks in Red Hot Lies. The principals have now detailed them in their own words in these emails, computer codes, and so on, talking about tricks to hide the decline in temperature, putting in all capitals that says, insert very artificial decline here. All sorts of other claims in which they're admitting they know exactly what they're doing. They use the words fudge and so on, fudge factors for their data to get the desired results.
And now the controlled corporate media is teaching us hide the decline, fudge. That doesn't mean what you think anymore. That means save the polar bears.
Right. The most embarrassing exercise was when the media spent about 8 days telling us the trick was really a scientific colloquialism, and it means different things to people.
Yes.
And I said, that's great. What about the word hide? Or the decline? But they didn't focus on that. They said, well, trick doesn't mean trick. The reasonable meanings and the plain meanings aren't reasonable. Only the unreasonable extrapolations are what they really meant. And they're saying it was in the heat.
And you've also got statements like, this is just horrible. We can't account for the decline in temperatures. How do we hide it? I mean, it's so clear. And then they're persecuting other scientists and working with government, colluding. Oh, after I explained it to the government, they're not going to release it. Now that they know what type of people these are. And one of the heads of the UN propaganda got questioned by a filmmaker Friday in Copenhagen. It's up on Infowars.com. We'll play the video later, folks. And it's a press conference. He gets up to ask the question, and the guy says, oh, I don't talk about things that come from people that are this immoral. You know, this comes from immoral people, and these are private emails. And he has armed guard come in and start grabbing them and dragging them out. I mean, these people are authoritarian, very authoritarian.
Let me tell you something. I've got a chapter in Red Hot Lies that I quote these people all over the place, openly wistful about, oh, if we only had an enlightened totalitarian system like China, we could get this agenda in place. And that argument is now out in the open. I believe it's Tom Friedman at the New York Times has been recently making it. Oh, if only we had that system. We need to suspend certain liberties, just certain liberties, and just for a little while, because democracy, they say, is getting in the way, and people who are we have been unable to convince them to do what's in their own self-interest. We're going to have to make it happen somehow. And I quote them throughout that chapter. They really are getting unabashed about this because no one's calling them on it. And instead, as you pointed out, the media are covering for them. I mean, thrown in, full-out advocates, participants in the global warming industry. They've always been sensationalists, but this goes far beyond that, and I detail that in fact, the opening chapter. So none of what's come out recently are revelations. They're all affirmations. By the way, there was not one personal email that we can find so far, yet they assign that to everything. They say it all shows science as it should be, and yet it's terrible that these things got out and so on.
But the good news is, Christopher Horner, the public isn't buying the Associated Press and CNN telling us nothing to see here, move along. I mean, do you agree that this is devastating? Because all the fraud and all the exposés were building, and through the grassroots, the people were learning, and people were seeing Fortune 500 get behind it, and really a backlash was already there, and then now you're going to tax what plants breathe, and Al Gore making all this money. I mean, is this not devastating them?
I truly believe it is, and again, their reaction tells quite a lot, and the lengths to which the media are going to stop their agenda from taking water is instructive. Now, what are we going to see? Well, the president is talking about, in fact, The Guardian has reported this. I wrote an article in the March issue of what's called Engage, which is the Federalist Society's publication, detailing how what's called a congressional executive agreement, which we have plenty of. For example, NAFTA is a treaty that we decided wasn't a treaty, and therefore you waive the Constitution's Article 2, Section 2 requirement of two-thirds ratification. Two-thirds ratification will never happen for this. So what the president, according to The Guardian now, the old red herself, The Guardian, has reported that the administration is briefing European diplomats, as I've also written, to prepare them for the prospect that we need to write this in a way that it's got to be plausibly declared not a treaty, because then they can say all it takes is 50 plus 1 in both houses, and no amendment, up or down, no filibuster vote under what they call fast track. Now, there's precedent for this in the trade context, but not in a global energy rationing, selective, punitive wealth transfer scheme. So,
and then on top of it, he's saying if you don't ratify it, I'm still going to implement it.
Yeah, then we've got the EPA trying. Now, that doesn't satisfy the wealth transfer, and it doesn't bind us internationally. However, it will. You still can possibly get to bury that in these enormous spending bills now, ladling more debt on my kids and theirs. And EPA's threatening to do this. Here's what just so you know, nobody wants to take ownership of this hot potato. They were furious that Bush wouldn't start this rulemaking after we lost that Supreme Court case, that he kicked it into this administration. Now, recently, EPA has declared CO2 is a endangers human health and the environment, to which I first say, try living without it. But now they're going to say, we'll issue this finding, and it's being published tomorrow in the Federal Register. And then they're going to try something unlawful, which is to say do sort of a half-arsed maneuver with it, so that the green groups then march into court and they and the courts get assigned responsibility for this. In other words, they won't go all the way in implementing it, but they know that the green groups, under the Clean Air Act, can make them. So it's not really plausible deniability, but that's their route, Alex. They don't want to.
Sure. I mean, it's criminal. It's by stealth. It's creeping like a spider creeping up your bed at night to bite you.